self-harm had become the most important thing to me. And I think probably without having the kind of volunteering opportunities that I got and being able to engage in all of that, I don't think I would be alive today. I genuinely will stand by the fact that it saved my life.
Welcome back to the Believe in Yourself podcast. Today's guest, as a teenager, didn't think she'd make it past her 18th birthday. However, using the power of sport and helping others, she found volunteering helped get her life back on track. In 2018, she was awarded the BBC Sports Personality of the Year Get Inspired Unsung Hero Award and is now a motivational speaker sharing her story to inspire the next generation. Please welcome to the Believe in Yourself podcast, Kirsty Ewen.
Hi.
Hi, Kirsty. How are you keeping during these times?
Not bad. I think probably up and down like everyone, good days and bad days, but just trying to take each day as it comes and try and find kind of the good parts of the day and try and focus on that to get through. So, yeah.
I think that's a really important thing that I think a lot of people have kind of sugarcoated during COVID-19 is the fact that, you know, everyone thinks you should be on top of the world, or you should be happy 24/7. And the fact is just that isn't reality.
No, definitely not. I think for me, like, my life normally runs at 300 miles an hour, traveling all over the country to do kind of different things and speeches and training and things like that. And I normally pack my diary full, so I don't really have too much time to kind of stop and think and be in my own head. And then to kind of come into lockdown, I live on my own in a flat. So it's a completely different lifestyle. So it's definitely been challenging at times. But yeah, really lucky to have kind of really good friends and support networks around that I can kind of keep in contact with anyway. And just found different ways to connect with people and engage, which has been really exciting as well.
I think that's the whole point of this lockdown period is the fact that we, you know, all of our habits and our routines and our normal, usual things we go to for escapisms were, you know, mostly been destroyed, like myself. And it's a case of that we've had to find kind of a new normal, also we've had to replace things. And I think, you know, one good thing will come out of this period of isolation for the last 12 weeks is the fact that hopefully we'll move forward with some new ideas and some new perspectives on perhaps how we can manage things. And I appreciate that every day is different, but hopefully we've survived our darkest days now, and hopefully the rest of it should be all uphill, hopefully.
Definitely. And I think there's definitely, like you say, positives that we can take kind of moving post-lockdown into whatever the new normal does look like. Because I think there's been some really positive pieces of work that have been done and you know, working in different ways. And for me, I think I could probably get some work as a quiz master or a bingo caller or an online escape room host, because that's what I'm doing every week with kind of my swimmers and my squads, which is really exciting, good fun. But yeah, I think maybe new career paths ahead.
Definitely something to look after lockdown. Escape rooms, I haven't heard that one. I'll be honest, we do our quiz every Saturday with me and my mates. We haven't gone to bingo, but escape rooms is what I've never heard of doing online.
It's really good, actually. We did it with our junior squads first, and I'm doing it with the seniors tomorrow night, actually. But it's just, I paid for a package online, and they all log in on their own devices. And then we come onto Zoom and I show them like the introduction and then put them into breakout rooms. So they're working with other kind of squad members and families, and they compete against each other to try and solve the escape room fastest. So they're all playing along in their own houses, and then they share kind of what's working and what's not. So it's been the thing that's had the best feedback so far, actually. So definitely.
Oh, that's awesome.
Escape room.
Yeah, definitely something I'm going to start to look at introducing maybe after Saturday's quiz. But yeah, you know, I think it's one of those things, isn't it? You either kind of, you either stop surviving and you need to start thriving. And it's one of the things that we can always look at the bad things going on in our lives. It's just looking at the opportunities and ways we can connect after, like you said, you're doing certain things to engage your squad. But obviously we heard a little bit about then your involvement with swimming. But before we find out more about that and your personal story, I want to start off, you know, back to the very beginning of your journey, back to yourself as a young person in school, and just kind of find out a little bit more about kind of your childhood as a young person.
Yeah, so I was a competitive swimmer. I apparently used to hate swimming when my mum and dad sent me to lessons, and I used to make myself sick to try and not go to them. So I think I've probably always had quite a lot of anxiety and a bit of a worrier. But as soon as I could swim, I kind of fell in love with it. I started off doing synchronized swimming, which is a bit odd because I'm really not the most graceful of people. But it was good fun, but then decided that I wanted to give kind of competitive swimming a go. So I kind of got fully into that, and probably by the time I was kind of 13, 14, I would train 9 or 10 times a week, kind of before school and after school, all the unsociable hours that swimming as a sport provides for you. But I totally loved it, and I loved kind of the challenge of improving and kind of working hard and then seeing those improvements. And then when things weren't going so good, I like to try and kind of troubleshoot it and work on what I needed to move forward. But then when I was kind of around the age of about 14, I really started to struggle more with my mental health. And it had probably been a couple of years prior to that it had started. That's when it really kind of manifested in terms of the sport. And it became something that I would punish myself with. So if I had a bad swim at a competition, I would just equate that to being a rubbish person and not being good enough. And if I swam well, I couldn't ever really appreciate the good in it. I would always kind of critique anything I could find within that. And it really became kind of something that I would just use to punish myself with at any turn and any opportunity, really. So I started self-harming, and obviously as a swimmer, there's not many places on your body that are kind of covered up. So that obviously became a challenge. And as I did that more, I really struggled to kind of hide that, and obviously the impact that that would have on performances as well, and kind of draining my body of things that it needed to. So around about the age of kind of 14, 15, I decided to quit. But I'd only ever wanted to be a swimmer. Like as soon as I joined competitive swimming and realised that I could do it and I wasn't too bad at it, my goal was only ever to swim in the Olympics. I didn't have a career path that I wanted to follow. I didn't have kind of a job that I thought, oh, that's my dream job. So that obviously had a massive impact on my mental health kind of following that, because I really just didn't know who I was without swimming. And obviously spending so much time both training and competing and traveling to do all of that, I just had all this free time on my hands that I didn't know what to do with. And about the same time, my active skills coordinator in the school, who organised like after school activities, approached a group of us and showed us a video about sports leadership. And all I could think of when I watched the video was, I've only ever been able to swim. Like I was useless at every other sport I tried. It just was not a good match. Not one of these naturally sporty people. And I just thought, why has she asked me to do this? Like I'm rubbish at sports. Like this isn't for me. But she took a good few weeks and months to kind of build a relationship with me. And I also had known her prior to that through the swimming club. But she really worked on building that relationship and encouraged me to give it a shot. And I did, and then really had no idea what I was getting into or why I was even saying yes. But it completely changed my life.
And how did you find school going through those times where you were struggling? Obviously, you know, it had an impact on your swimming. How did did it have an impact on your school life?
Yeah, I think it did. I mean, I had good friends, but obviously when you're not feeling great and you don't really want people to know, I was certainly very private. I didn't want to talk about anything that was going on in my head. I didn't want to talk about how I was feeling or the self-harming. So that kind of begins to create a bit of a barrier between you and other people. So I did keep those friends, but it definitely became something that was less, I guess, at the forefront. Whereas before that, I would have been kind of very outgoing, very social. So yeah, that had an impact. And then school, I mean, I kind of guess I did what I needed to get by, but it wasn't something that I was really overly interested in. I didn't really enjoy studying. I guess most teenagers don't. But I think obviously feeling so negatively about myself as I did, I really didn't have any kind of self-worth or self-esteem left by this point. I just felt like even if I tried hard, I wouldn't succeed anyway. So if I just put in the bare minimum work, then it didn't matter if I did rubbish because, well, I hadn't tried.
Yeah.
It definitely impacted kind of on my schooling and things as well.
Yeah, and I was kind of always the same with that. I thought, well, at the end of the day, if I don't try, then if I don't try very hard, I can at least use that as an excuse. Oh, well, I didn't try anyway, so I wasn't expecting good results, because I kind of had that, like I said, that low self-expectation of yourself. And like myself, I always kind of grew up as a young person with the highest of expectations, and I think of myself as a bit of a perfectionist. I'm the kind of person that I can't do something half-assed. If I do something, it has to be the very best, otherwise I just don't see any point in doing it. And I've always been the same. I thought, well, if I know I'm striving for perfection, is stopping me from getting progress, because I was trying to aim so high. So I thought, well, rather than trying to be perfection, I'll just stop, but I won't try. So then I can at least use that as an excuse.
Yeah,
So I can relate so much to that aspect of your story.
definitely. I'm exactly the same. And I think that's probably ultimately why I ended up giving up swimming, because I've actually realised that I was never going to reach that perfection that I had in my head. So actually, why was I spending so much of my life doing it? And I guess, yeah, same at school, like you say, like it's all these kind of aims that you have for yourself that actually you would never put on anybody else at all. Like it's much higher for you. And I think probably as an adult, that's something I still struggle with, like, is actually trying to manage that perfection and trying to manage how I see myself as opposed to how I would see someone else talking to me. And really kind of try and balance out that kind of level of actually what's achievable and what is that perfection that's not. And you talking about progress there, a couple of years ago I got a tattoo on my wrist that says progress not perfection, just to try and remind me that actually doing something is better than doing nothing, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but as long as you're making progress in that area, then it's a positive thing.
That's it. And like one of the things I have to say is, as long as you try your best every day, that's all that matters. Some days you're going to be able to do more than other days. Some days you're going to be able to do, you may be able to achieve one small thing, especially during lockdown. I've realized that
Yes.
I wasn't going to achieve everything all at once. If I could just get that one small thing done today, at least I'm that one step forward than I was before I woke up. And some days you are going to have good productive days where you are going to be able to smash through the work and create things that probably would have taken you a couple of days and it's taken you one day. So like I said, as long as you're striving for progression and getting that 1% closer to where you want to be every day, then that's all anyone can ask. And all anyone can do is, the best of your ability, not someone else's.
Definitely. And I think actually lockdown has probably taught me that a lot more and actually made me have to live that, rather than I know that that's what I should do and how I should feel, but actually realistically being able to accept that that is how you feel are two very different things. But I think lockdown's taught me that a lot. Like some days I'm totally smashing it, like I'll join in with squad workouts for the swimmers, I'll take Bailey, my dog, for like a really long walk and I'll get loads of stuff done. And then other days I'm like can't step out the door to take him out, and it's like a big effort just to get him out for a walk. So and I think accepting that has been really key in getting through lockdown, and I think that's definitely something that I want to take forward, because I do put a lot of pressure on myself kind of in the pre-COVID world, if that's what we want to call it, to actually achieve so much, and actually a lot of the time that's maybe not accurate and it's not actually fair to do. So yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest things I want to take forward from lockdown, is just being a bit more realistic and celebrating the small achievements.
Of course, and it's so important. It's something that we all forget to do. I think so many of us get caught up in the bigger picture of having big dreams and trying to achieve everything all at once. So we get really caught. We sometimes forget about the small things, the small victories that we can get. And for some people, those small victories may be waking up before the alarm goes off, and it can be as small as that. But yet depending on kind of our expectations, we often over try and aim to a little bit too high sometimes with that, and we forget about the little things we've done really well as well. But coming back to yourself as a young person, obviously once you finished swimming, did you have any kind of like escapisms that you used to use as a young person when you had your darkest days of mental health? Obviously, like for myself, my sport was always an escapism for me. So sport wasn't something that I never applied too much pressure on myself. It was just all about enjoying it. And so for me, whenever I stepped on a sports field, it was as if I was a completely different person, because it was as if the outside world didn't matter. Did you have anything like that?
I think that's what sports leadership and volunteering became for me. Certainly when I started, obviously you're in a games hall and things, so you're like, well, we're not going to be doing anything with water, so
Yeah.
not sure about this, not sure how this works. And when I started that kind of journey of sports leadership, like I didn't even want to talk in front of the other 7 girls that were involved in the group. But really kind of once we got into it and I got the opportunity to go and lead and volunteer at lots of different clubs for the younger kids, it just became my absolute focus. I think like every single day I would try and get involved in something if I could, and did sports that I would never have thought I would ever go and coach, because I always thought like, well, if I can't do the sport, can I really like lead and help people like learn? But actually that's what sports leadership teaches you, is that it doesn't matter how you perform at a sport, like it's about all those other qualities and how you can relate to the kids and organization and communication and everything else. So yeah, I think that definitely became my escape, and it probably has continued. Actually, I think volunteering is still my escape. I still probably spend more of my life volunteering than I do paid work. So yeah, I think there's definitely been my kind of coping mechanism from that. But in terms of swimming, it took me a really long time to be able to go back near the sport. I probably only in the last 4 or 5 years actually accepted the decision that I made to quit. So when I actually decided to quit, the main reason I did that was because I wanted to hurt myself more. So obviously for a long time that's been really difficult in terms of what could have been, like what could I have achieved, what could I have done, and now as an adult looking back, I'm like, that was such a stupid, like, why would you quit because you want to do that? But obviously when you're in that moment, like that self-harm had become the most important thing to me. And I think probably without having the kind of volunteering opportunities that I got and being able to engage in all of that, I don't think I would be alive today. I genuinely will stand by the fact that it saved my life. Just having that positive focus and, you know, the buzz you get when, I guess, anyone who's worked with younger children, and the buzz you get from them when they come in and you're working with them, and just that challenge, I guess, as well. But it was a challenge that there was no pressure on, and even me trying my hardest, like I couldn't make that a pressurized situation because the focus was just about having fun and keeping the kids having fun as well. So yeah, volunteering and sports leadership were definitely my escape.
And I think that's like very similar to myself. It's a case of that, you know, sport was always something that I loved, but I found with volunteering it was much more, with sport I found it was more about me and my performance and the team. But there was something about leadership and volunteering in particular, and doing sports leaders, was the fact that it wasn't about me, it was about them. And it was about doing something not just for myself, but a greater benefit for someone else. And there was something about facilitating a session, or literally, it didn't have to be this top world-class session. It was a case of just maybe having a ball, or not, maybe some no equipment some days. And it was just about delivering something that puts a smile on their face. And there was something empowering about thinking, well, if they're leaving a session with a smile on my face, then so am I. And that makes me feel more fulfilled than, you know, just leaving a rugby pitch thinking, oh, I've just put in a good performance, we've won. You know, it was just, the difference of fulfillment was just indescribable. And that's why kind of I always then edged towards the volunteering pathway, as opposed to trying to say, well, let's try and become a better player. Let's try and actually become a better volunteer, because you can have much more of an impact.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think that being able to help others, and just whether it's they're learning a new skill or you're helping them have fun or just being there for them if they need some support, I think that focus of that and helping them and being there for them and being what they needed, I think was really important for me then. And certainly, you know, during kind of the darkest days when I was suicidal, and I did attempt suicide a couple of times, but I think I would have tried more had it not been for having those sessions to go to, because actually you do soon realise that the kids would miss you if you weren't there. And actually you are having an impact, whether that's helping register them, whether it's helping lead a session, whether it's, you know, doing anything in that session, you're playing a part that's important for other people to grow and achieve their goals.
So take me back, if you can, to that very first session of sports leaders. You know, was you nervous? Was you excited? Was you a little bit, didn't know what was going to happen?
I think I was super nervous, definitely super nervous. And, you know, we all went in and, you know, when they start talking about, so you'll be leading a session, like a part of a session, or you'll be leading a warm up. And I was like a deer in the headlights, I think. I was like total panic mode. Like, I can't do that. Like, what are you talking about? Why am I here? What am I doing? Definitely very nervous and a bit kind of apprehensive about probably not so much the course, but my ability to be able to do what was going to be asked. Obviously going back to how I felt about myself as well, like that was all kind of tied in. But I think it probably only took about 2 or 3 sessions before I started to realise that actually this is really fun, like I'm really enjoying it, and actually I could start to see the benefits from it. And it's just so weird for me to now look back at that when I didn't even want to talk in front of these 7 girls that I knew from school, and now I stand up in front of hundreds of people and talk to them. It's just crazy, and I think it just shows the impact that sports leadership has, because all the things I've done, I wouldn't have done any of them if it hadn't been for that first session of sports leadership, and even before that for my mentor to actually take the time to really get me involved. So yeah, it's a crazy journey, and I think you'll probably be able to relate to that as well.
Yeah, I definitely can. And you know, one thing I like to talk a little bit about there is because in life, we all do things that are sometimes scary, and there's sometimes we're, you know, a bit anxious of going into, and whether that being a young person's first session of sports leaders, or whether that being someone's first day in work, or any aspect in life where you're going to do something for the first time, it can be really anxious, and it can be quite scary sometimes, and quite daunting if you're going into the unknown. You know, going through your experiences and what you've done through sports leaders, and that the experience you had in your first session to where you are now, what would your one bit of advice be to someone who's going to try something for the first time?
I think it would probably be to appreciate the moments. So appreciate all the little things that happen in between. It would be to believe in your own ability, because you can achieve so much more than you even know is possible right now, and just enjoy it, because no matter how scary it is, there is always something that you can learn and take away from it that will help you, and that will help you get better at something, or help you feel better about yourself, or help you grow as a person.
No, great advice there. I think a lot of people can take something away from that in particular. When you're going into something, you're quite scared, and you're looking at all the what ifs, or the negative things that could happen to you, and rather than actually looking, well, what if that I do sports leaders and all these amazing things happen to me like you had done? Because you know, I'm obviously putting words in your mouth here, but I don't think you probably went into sports leaders saying, oh, what if I went to sports leaders and I'd end up speaking in front of everyone, and I'd end up doing this for a living and getting to see the world as you have done?
Absolutely not. I think I just went in, like you say, with all the negatives, like what if people laugh at me? What if I'm no good at this? What if I can't do something? You know, all those negatives that you talk about there, I had no idea about all of the opportunities that would come even in that first year of being involved in sports leadership, and you know, the different qualifications that you open up that you can do, and the different opportunities that you have within the community. To then look at the wider opportunities that I've had. If I had been told that when I started, I think I would have just laughed and not believed it, because yeah, I think it totally opened up my world. I would never have considered like working in sport if it hadn't been for that. And now I work part-time for Scottish Disability Sport, so it kind of shaped a career path. But bigger than that, like, it shaped me as a person. It made me value things. It gave me a reason to stay alive, and then just have some incredible opportunities alongside that. It was just amazing. I think every young person should get involved.
No, I 100% agree, and it's the fact that even if you just give it a go, you know, no one's asking you to become a world class coach, or you know, a motivational speaker like the both of us, but we're just asking you to become the best version of yourselves. And I think, you know, you can learn so many valuable, transferable life skills through the power of leadership, but also through something you enjoy through sport. And I think it's important to realize as well, when it comes down to sports leadership, you know, when I was a young person, a lot of if I look back on my group of sports leaders, we were all sporty people. We were all kind of the best athletes or the best rugby players, football players, gymnasts, netball players, and all these things. But what modern day sports leadership has become like, you don't have to be good at sport. You just have to, sport's just a vehicle for getting you in. I've done some leadership sessions before, and the best sports leaders have been the ones who are not your sporty people. They're the ones who are kind of your best leaders, your best communicators. And there's a role for everyone when it comes to sports leadership in regards to coaching, to team management, to media. There's loads of roles out there other than just being an athlete and participating physically.
Yeah, definitely. I think my group was quite mixed. I think there were a few of us who weren't really that good at sport. I was probably the worst of that group. Everyone was kind of quite sporty apart from me. But there was kind of probably half the group who were like the best kind of athletes and stuff. But yeah, I totally agree. I think some of the best sports leaders that I've had the pleasure to kind of come in contact with and to meet have been those people who are just really passionate about making a change or helping others or improving themselves. It's really not about sport at all. And I think, like you say, like that's even more the case nowadays. And it's great that hopefully we can kind of widen that net and hopefully help other young people see that you don't have to be really good at sport to do it. And I think that's really important, because if it's a massive barrier, I would say. It definitely, if it hadn't been for my mentor taking the time to kind of really encourage me to get involved, I wouldn't have done it. And then I look now at what I've got from it, and I just think that would have been such a waste. And I think there's probably other young people out there who haven't had that opportunity, that if we can just get that word out and say, look, it doesn't have to be about the sport, it's about leadership. I just think it could help change so many more young people's lives.
I think like moving forward as well, it's you often see a huge emphasis on kind of performance pathways as participants of the sport. I'd love to see in the future kind of more pathways for more of coaches and for officials and for managers, people who want that different aspect, that different experience of sport, because it's something that's often not thought about. I've got a family friend who just finished playing rugby and he's gone to refereeing, and now a lot of people are saying he's got the potential to become a fantastic referee, but until they do that, there's no pathways for them. And people only think, if I want to be involved with sport, I've got to play. Well, no, you don't have to play at a young age. If you want to, you can, because at the end of the day, someone starts at a young age as a coach and said, no, I want to become a world-class coach and starting off at that level, then the younger they make that decision, the more experience they're going to get, the better they're going to be when it comes to age 30. Because, as you know, probably with many of the coaches in the sporting world, is they play sport for a certain period of time, then all of a sudden they just expect the transition between player and coach in the space of a couple of months. Where if they had spent that 20-year playing career actually coaching sport, imagine how much better experience or how much of a better coach they're going to be when they get to that age of that other person was going to transition.
Definitely. And I think that's really important. I think you see a lot more now though of like young volunteer opportunities, so like panels for young people to have kind of days in decision making. And I know Scottish Women, I'm involved with their young volunteer programme, and it's super exciting because it does all the things that you say. It has a young event coordinators section, it has a young technical officials section, it has a poolside helpers section, and then the kind of young ambassador programme who kind of feed in nationally. So I think that's really exciting, and I think you're right, like the more that we can broaden people's horizons on, actually it's not just about participating and coaching, but actually you can do all these other things as well. It just opens a lot more doors for people.
And you've opened your insights there a little bit about when it comes down to young people panels, because I know from knowing you previously before this episode, just how involved you are with kind of young people's panels and steering groups and all that kind of stuff. So can you first start off by telling us a bit about kind of the panels or the roles you currently have sitting on boards and groups at the moment of time?
Yeah, so at the moment I'm part of Spirit of 2012 Youth Advisory Panel. So for me that was really exciting because my previous experience with panels was all around sport. But Spirit of 2012 are obviously the legacy charity from the London Olympics, and they focus on culture, arts, volunteering and sport. So for me that's been really exciting to kind of get a broader kind of outlook on what happens across the country. And as a youth panel, we were given a kind of large sum of money to create our own grant. So we kind of looked at what areas we wanted to focus on, what we wanted people and projects to actually be doing, and what impact we wanted them to be having. And then we kind of created that application fund, and we're about to decide on our final kind of grantees that we're going to award the money to at a meeting this weekend, which is really exciting. And then I run the Young Ambassadors programme for Scottish Women, try and kind of keep the young people engaged and keep them on the right path of what they're wanting to achieve, and make sure that their voices are the ones that are being heard. And previous to that, in 2016 to 2018, I was part of Sport Scotland's Young People Sport Panel. And I would say, probably aside from being involved in sports leadership at the beginning, that's probably the other thing that's really had the most impact on my life and have changed and shifted where my kind of outlook was. So that was really good. But yeah, I think there's lots of panels and groups and programs and things that people are running now, and I think that's great. But what I think is really important is that those groups aren't just token groups, and that they're not just there for organisations to say we consult with young people have a voice in what we're doing. It actually has to mean something, and it has to be put in practice. Otherwise, I don't think there's any point in having those youth panels. So I think it's quite a fine balance in some organisations, but I think it's really important that it's meaningful input that those programmes and panels have. And it's not just kind of a tick box exercise, because then the young people don't actually get anything out of it. And I think the young people involved need to get as much as the organisation involved gets from that partnership of them being there and being involved with the work that they're doing.
So if a business or a charity or an organisation is listening to this podcast and they want to involve more youth boards and youth setups within inside their organisations, from your experience of being a part of lots of steering groups, young youth panels, and all that kind of things, what would your advice be to those businesses and organisations who are looking to engage with youth or to have a youth panel involve their organisations? You know, knowing what you know now, you know, what's your top bit of advice on how to engage or how to do it so it's not done in a tokenistic way?
I don't know if it quite answers your question, but I think for anyone looking to engage with young people or a youth panel, I think the biggest piece of advice I could give is that you need to have time set aside to do that. It isn't something that just kind of runs itself. It's a lot of kind of prep work and kind of ongoing work to make sure that the young people are still engaged and that they're okay with what they're doing, and that you're actually creating a space for them to feed their ideas into you. It's not just the organisation giving them pieces of work to do. I think the work has to be created by the young people and kind of co-designed and run by the youth that they're working with, which takes a lot of time. And I think some organisations, that's maybe where they fall down, is they think that once they've done the recruitment and they've got them on board, that actually they can just kind of have the odd meeting and be left in between. But actually, in my experience, it's actually about that constant engagement and constant support for the young people to really make sure that they get the best out of their experience.
Yeah, no, I couldn't have put it better myself, because, you know, I think one of the best bit of advice I give is the kind of fact that, you know, don't talk at young people, talk with them. And that's something that I've gained from my personal experiences where, you know, they've got young people on the table, right, this is a youth steering group or a youth board or whatever they want to call it. And they'll just bring in people throughout the day to talk at you. And they said, right, we're going to talk at you for half an hour. Then you're going to tell us you either love it, hopefully you love it. And most people at a young age feel quite insulted and say, no, I don't like it.
It's a bit of a guided answer for that.
Yeah, that's it. And then literally the last 5 minutes of it is probably, right, would you do anything differently? And you only get 5 minutes. So write as many ideas, and you normally get that one scribe in the corner who is trying to write down every single idea as possible. And then you finally go back to the drawing board, and maybe the next meeting in a couple of months' time, they'll come back and say, right, we had all these great ideas. What happened with them? Oh, well, we wrote them down, and then, well, we wrote them down, and then nothing happened. And that sometimes, you know, so it's about, so I always think about talk with young people. Don't just talk at them. Allow them the opportunity to be creative, because young people can come up with some great ideas. It's just having the place to do it.
That's why you've got them involved, because you know that they have good ideas and they maybe think in a different way than the rest of the organization does. But yeah, I think sometimes it does get a bit lost, like you say, and I don't think that's in like a malicious way or even an intended way. I think sometimes organizations just fall into that because it's what they've always done. So yeah, I think just being a bit more aware of that.
No, I completely agree. But then, so we talked about how you first got into volunteering and how you first got into sports leadership and kind of some of the panels and the journey you've been on now. I love to talk. Obviously, we've got to talk about your award. You know, your award is the big thing that, you know, a lot of people ask to hear about. So how does the story of winning the award, where does it start?
I still get so embarrassed talking about the award, honestly. But yeah, so back in 2018, I about October time, I got a call from somebody at BBC Scotland to tell me that I'd won the Scotland Region Unsung Hero Award. And we laugh about it now because she said that, like, in the call, like, I just kept saying, "Are you sure? Like, do you have the right person?" Like, completely. And I honestly thought it was one of my friends playing a joke on me. Like, I was just totally, like, blindsided by it. I couldn't believe it. Yeah. But yeah, so it was true, which was bizarre. And then they came up and we filmed a video that would go to the overall panel of judges that would judge the UK winner. That gets presented at Sports Personality of the Year. So I got told, like, clear your diary for this weekend, you need to be in Birmingham. And I was like, is this even happening? You know, that way that Sports Personality of the Year is one of those shows that you've just watched like every year since you were a kid, and you're just like, is it actually a real thing? Like, people actually go here? But yeah, so cleared my diary, obviously, and they came up and did the filming. And probably one of my most favourite memories, actually, of the whole experience was the day they came to film, because they came to one of my sessions with one of my squads, and they just did loads of filming of the kids. They filmed me coaching. They spoke to some of the kids, and then they gave the kids at the end GoPro cameras, and they got to go underwater, and they were playing like rock paper scissors underwater, and they were making silly faces, and the whole morning was just like full of laughter. And it's such nice memories to have with like that whole squad of kids. So yeah, we did all that, and then it got sent to the kind of overall panel, and the whole time, like, people kept saying to me, like, oh, you might win, like, at like the awards. And I was like, don't be ridiculous. And then, you know, that way they like release all the videos, like, one a day leading up to the awards, and I'm watching all these videos, and I was just getting so excited to meet all the other unsung heroes because they were just amazing. Like, their videos were incredible, and the work they were doing was so interesting. I just couldn't wait to meet them and find out more about them. So travelled down to Birmingham, and we had like a drinks reception on the Saturday night and started to meet people, and that was just amazing. And people still kept being like to me at home, like, oh, you might win, like, what are you going to say? And I'm like, I'm not going to win, just enough. Like, go and watch these videos and then tell me that, like, I might win. Like, absolutely not. So on the Sunday morning, they got us all together, and we had like a brunch. And the winner from the previous year spoke to us about like her year as the unsung hero and what she'd been up to. And the BBC staff were like, guys, you need to all prepare something about 30 seconds worth to say, because you won't find out who wins until it's announced live. So you need to make sure you've got something to say. So I'd taken my mum to the awards. Now, me and my mum and dad have always had a bit of a fractious relationship, but it's getting better now that I'm older, but it's still pretty tense at times. And I was obviously full of anxiety, like, and nerves, and just like, you know, not knowing what to expect and stuff, because we'd been told we would like walk the red carpet and things like that. And it's all just very surreal I was just like, I just coach and I just share my story. Like, I don't really know why I'm here. Like, I shouldn't be here. Like, someone else definitely deserves this and stuff. So it was all very weird. But my mum was going on at me the whole time we were getting ready. She was like, Kirsty, I really think you should think of something you're going to say, just in case. She was like, it doesn't matter if you don't win, but just prepare. And I was like, Mum, enough. Like, just leave me alone. Like, stop stressing me out. I don't need to prepare anything, so I'm not going to win. So we went to the venue and we did the red carpet bit, and then we got to kind of go into like a pre-show party. And then we headed to the arena and kind of sat down and got told that we would all go on stage together, which was really lovely. So I think before that, the winners had been went up from their seats, in the audience to collect their trophy, but they decided that we would all go stand on stage and the winner would be announced there. So we were all like excited, like, oh, like I don't know whether we're excited or nervous, like to stand in front of all these people, because obviously it's like all these sports stars that you're just have looked up to for so long. But it was good, just kind of enjoyed the moment and being there and watching it. But it's funny because, you know, when you watch it on TV and it's all really glamorous and it looks so like put together, and then when you're there in person and it like cuts to like a VT, there's just people running everywhere, like moving sets and like filling, and if an athlete moves, like somebody's sitting there. So it was just quite bizarre. And yeah, then when we went on stage and Jessica Ennis-Hill announced that I was the winner, I was just totally blown away. Like anyone who saw it or seen pictures since, like I just had my hands over my mouth, like couldn't believe it. And then had the video played and I was like, oh my gosh, I should have thought of something to say. I was like, I don't know what to talk about. Like, what am I going to say now? And I had like all these people staring at me, obviously. But I think it was probably good that way, because then I couldn't really get nervous about speaking, because I just had time to like speak to Jessica and Gabby, who said like, you need to hold the trophy in one hand. And I was like, one hand. My hand was like going like this. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna drop it. And then I just had to think what I was gonna say. And by the time I'd done that, it was just kind of time to speak again. And I think I wouldn't change what I said. You know, I knew I wanted to talk about the other people that were on stage with me, because I'd just been blown away, like the whole weekend, getting to know them all and stuff and hearing more about all their work. It was just incredible. And then I knew I didn't want to thank people personally, because there'd been so many people that were involved in my journey and who I looked up to and was inspired by and who'd helped me, that I didn't want to miss anyone out. So I knew I just wanted to do a kind of brief thing, but it actually came across really natural, I think. And I think if I'd rehearsed it, it would have been a bit forced and a bit robotic, which I don't think would be very nice. So yeah, but it's all very surreal. It's still really surreal. Like, it's been almost 2 years now and I still can't believe it all happened. It's just crazy.
Of course, and it must be, obviously, like being a person from Scotland, all of a sudden be surrounded by all these incredible athletes and people, and or suddenly the spotlight's on you, for example. So, you go to the night looking, oh my God, wow, is that person there? Is that person there? And you recognise them for the achievements, what they do on telly, and all of a sudden you're the one on stage and they're the ones looking and go, wow, you're Kirsty.
Yeah, it was crazy, because when we went to the after party, like Callum Skinner, who was a Scottish cyclist, he had kind of come up to me and said, oh, congratulations. And I was like, okay. He's like, do you want to So Chris Hoy had come in late because he'd been at something else. I don't think he hadn't actually seen me getting the award, but he was like, "You want to meet Chris?" But obviously, Chris Hoy like has like tons of people around him, and I was like, "Oh, it's fine, don't worry." He was like, "No, wait there," and he just goes into like all these people and pulls Chris Hoy out and brings them over to me, and he's like telling Chris about like how I won the Unsung Hero Award and telling him about what I did and stuff. And I was like, "This is so bizarre." And Chris Hoy was like, "Oh, it's a pleasure to meet you," and I was like, no, that's the wrong way around. Like, that's definitely how this conversation should go. But yeah, and then Callum was just like going away to get like different Scottish athletes for me to get pictures with and stuff for me. But yeah, very bizarre. And all the athletes were like, "Oh, like, well done, like you do such amazing work, it's totally well deserved" and stuff. And I was just like, these are like people that I watch on telly. Like, these aren't people I'm supposed to meet or who are supposed to know my name or what I do. It was very surreal, but amazing opportunity and amazing experience, but very crazy.
Awesome. And so talk me about the year you had then last year since receiving the award. What happened in that space of time?
So I'd obviously done, when I was part of the sport panel, and they really encouraged me to, well, they gave opportunities for us to share our kind of stories and stuff. And then obviously upon kind of learning more about my journey, they had lots more opportunities that came up for me to go and share my experience and try and kind of make a difference for like other young people, or to talk to like people who are in the sports sector to try and make them think differently. So that had been really good. And as I kind of went through, it was kind of something that I was like, I really enjoy this. Like, it's really good. I love the buzz I get from it, but actually, like, sometimes it's really hard. And I guess you might experience this too. Like, when you're talking about like the hardest parts of your life that actually you used to just be so ashamed of and you used to hide, and you wouldn't talk about it. And then you're standing in front of these rooms of like 300 people and you're like, this is what happened, like this is what I've done, this is why it's important for me to be able to share this with you. But actually it's never harder than the drive and the importance for me of being able to help someone, even if it's just one person. Like, I just think if I can help somebody every time I speak, then it doesn't matter how difficult it was for me to get on that stage and do it, it's worth it. And I think the award just really kind of catapulted that. So people obviously had a bit of background to my story. They knew who I was, and they started to kind of invite me to events like conferences and awards nights and things, and it really just increased my profile, I guess. And I just had so many opportunities over the course of the year to both speak at events, to speak on the radio. I got to go on BBC Breakfast a couple of times, and it was amazing. And I think probably about halfway through that year, I was like, I want to do this more. Like, I really just want to help people, and this is how I want to do it. And the award helped me do that. I think without the award, I would have maybe had the kind of contacts that I already had, and I maybe got a couple more events and opportunities, but not to the extent that I have done now. So I think I'm super grateful for that, obviously, just to have that opportunity to reach more people. And I guess getting back involved more with sports leadership and the training days that we kind of co-deliver on and things, like, it's just so important to me that what I do can have an impact for somebody else. And I think even now, like, I still struggle a lot with my mental health at times, and even during those times, like, those are the things that keep me going, like actually helping other people, being able to have an impact, being able to change the way somebody looks at something, or even just encourage them to talk to somebody else, is just so important. And I think that's the biggest thing that came from the award, is just having a lot more opportunities to profile that work and to get my story out there, and hopefully inspire other people not to give up.
And why is it, I know this is kind of a very common question to ask, but why is it important that people talk about their mental health?
I think we are going a long way to reducing stigma. I think we're making kind of a lot of progress with that, but I think it's important for individuals to talk about their mental health, because the hiding of it makes it worse. So actually just talking to somebody that you trust and kind of sharing how you're feeling, sometimes actually that can improve how you're feeling anyway. But also I think it's about educating people around you how your mental health affects you. So I historically have always been good at talking about the past and how I felt in the past, but actually in that moment really struggling to say I'm not okay. So I guess, like, spending time educating people of how that might manifest for you means that other people can look out for you and help you. And then the more people talk, the more that we get rid of this stigma, because actually everybody has mental health. It might be good at times, it might be bad at times, it could be anywhere along that spectrum, but everybody has mental health. It's not something that only a select few of the population have. And I think sometimes mental health and mental illness get confused a lot. So I think it's really important that actually people start to recognise that mental health can be positive as well. It's not always a negative thing. And I guess lastly, I would love us to be in a society where it's not considered brave to come out and talk about struggling with your mental health. It's just something that people talk about, like an everyday conversation that happens. And I think the more that we can make it an everyday conversation, the easier it is for people to reach out for help and support when they need it, and also for people to relate to how people are feeling. Because I think even if you don't struggle with your mental health, there are times where you will feel anxious about something, like you say, like starting a new job, and those feelings can be related to somebody who has anxiety. So I think it's really important that people talk, one, on a personal level, because it helps, and it's helpful for people around you to be there, and also for people around you to understand how you're feeling as well. But then on that bigger level, because it shouldn't be something that people are praised for doing, or people think, oh, that's amazing that you've done that, well done. Actually, it should be like any other conversation we have about a physical health ailment or anything like that. So yeah, I think it's kind of twofold, if that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. And I think, like I said, I'd love to be at a point one day where talking about mental health is normality, as opposed to someone viewing it as a strength. Because that's, yes, it takes strength to begin talking, and it takes strength to listen and be there for someone. But when we get to that point in life, maybe in a couple of years, probably a long way down the line, actually, that we're at a point where it's just part of an everyday conversation because everyone's that confident and competent about talking about their mental health. I think that's a point that all of us can look forward to. But when it comes down to starting the conversation, I often hear a lot of people say, no, but it's, a lot of people don't start the conversation because they're too scared about what someone's going to say. And I think people need to realize that conversation starter can literally be as simple as, how are you doing? How are you feeling? But then also asking twice. Or if someone says to you, like a lot of the time, when you ask someone, how are you doing? They'll just turn around and say, yeah, good, thank you, you. And even if you reply, yeah, I'm good, thank you, you don't have to necessarily, yeah, but really, how are you really feeling? You don't necessarily have to be that pressurized. You can literally just say to someone, okay, great, but if you do ever want to talk, I'm here. And at least that person then knows that you are there. And that's kind of, I took a lot from my experiences. But what would you say to somebody who's maybe looking to start the conversation but perhaps doesn't know where to start, or perhaps overcomplicates it before they even ask the question?
I think you're right. I think it is just literally as simple as asking how you are, but actually not taking that first answer. So I have a lot of people in my life now who actually do that, because every time someone asks me how I am, my immediate answer is, I'm okay. And they're like, are you actually okay, or are you not okay? And so actually there's not many people in my life that will ask me how I am only once now, because actually I've learned that my immediate response will always be, I'm okay, without missing a beat. I think it is about that, but I think it's also about not putting pressure on it, because actually sometimes someone might not be ready for that conversation, and if there's pressure put on it, it would put them off maybe coming to that person for advice or to have that chat when they're ready. So I think you're right, it's about that. If you ever aren't okay, or if you ever need a chat about anything, like, just give me a shout or let me know. Because I think sometimes if you're like, are you really, and you keep going, it can make someone feel worse as well, like if they're not ready to talk about it. So I think casual chat is the way forward. Just like you would have any other conversation. Like, you would not go into any other conversation and keep going and going and going and going on something if somebody wasn't responding well to that. So I think it just needs to be part of a wider and normal conversation that people are having.
But also, as well as that, coming back to the point of the casual chat, I think it's important to realize they don't necessarily have to know someone to check in on them either. I think some of the most amazing conversations I've had with people in the recent few months, actually, as we've gone through this lockdown COVID-19 period, is I've had the most amazing conversations with people who I don't know. And it's simply by, for example, if I've been on my daily walk or my daily one bit of exercise, and you see someone, you just stop and have a conversation with them. And I think that comes down to the aspect, like you talked about earlier, about positive mental health. Now, we're not talking about mental health. We're not talking about how we're feeling and all these things we have inside of us. We're just having a conversation. And, I used to do, back a couple of weeks ago, I used to run down a field which was quite local to me. And every time I'd go for a run, I'd see the same elderly guy that would be out for his daily walk as well. And he ran, I was running once, and he walked past me and didn't say nothing. And I felt, when you see an old person on their own walk, and you think, oh, that's cute, kind of thing. And the next time I went down the next day, and he was doing exactly the same time. And we just managed to clash at the same time. Though I was running and he was walking. And I said, right, no, I'm going to make a point now to stop running and go and have a chat to him. And we chatted for 20 minutes. And like, you could just see how having a conversation meant something to him. I don't know that guy's background story, but I know he was lived alone. So it was nice just to have that conversation and how positively that can affect someone's mental health.
Definitely. I agree. Like, Sport Scotland and the Scottish Association for Mental Health worked together to do like a We Are Here campaign for lockdown. But part of that, they worked with the Young People Sport panel, and they came up with a walk and talk campaign. So I think it's run for like a month so far, I think. And actually, I reached out to a lot of people who I maybe hadn't spoken to in a while, but like wanted to catch up with, and ended up going out on a walk and just chatting to them. And more often than not, it'd be like an hour or just over, like having that conversation. And we would have a little bit of a chat about how we were and what we'd been up to and stuff, but it was just about that connection. And I think probably the most important thing around that whole mental health conversation, it's feeling connected to other people and feeling like you're not alone. Because when you're struggling with your mental health, like that's the biggest thing that you feel, and you feel like you're alone and there's nobody that would understand how you're feeling and things. So I think that connection work's really important to be done all the time. And then I think that mental health conversation becomes a whole lot easier if you're already have good connections with people. I noticed a massive difference for me as well, like actually how I felt in terms of my own mental health, and just felt a lot better after doing it. And I'd be outside for longer because I was distracted by like the conversation, and I wasn't like, oh, I just want to get home now, I've had enough. And it was really good. So yeah, it definitely had a massive positive impact for me personally.
No, that's amazing, and thank you for sharing that. But before we bring this another awesome episode of the podcast to a close, I just want to spend some time just to acknowledge yourself and the work that you've been doing. That I've been through the journey and the experiences that you've had to talk so bravely and passionately about as you've done today, but also as you do across Scotland and across the rest of the UK is incredible. And as an ambassador for sport, for mental health, for sports leadership and sports leaders, on behalf of myself, I know everyone else, this is on behalf of everyone else, is not just myself, but a massive thank you for the amazing work you're doing, because you really are changing lives. And I really do hope that every young person can look up and take something away from this podcast, but also from your story, because there were so many great snippets of how we could all relate to your story in the same, maybe in some different ways, and in this podcast. And I think you're doing incredible work, and I'm just pleased that it's getting the recognition that it deserves with the awards you've been winning. So on behalf of myself and everyone else you've been able to help and inspire, I just want to say a massive thank you.
Thank you.
More than welcome. Very, 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 very well deserved. But if people want to find out more about yourself, your speaking, or where can people find you on social media or online?
Pretty much everywhere. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. So yeah, pretty much have kind of a profile everywhere. So just look me up, and happy to have a chat about anything.
Awesome. So what I'll do is I'll make sure all the links to your social media channels, as you talked about there, are linked down in the show notes. So if you want to go find out and check in with Kirsty and find out what she's up to, then you can do via the links down below. But before I bring this episode to an official close, I always finish every podcast episode with something called my final 5, which are 5 rapid quick-fire questions, and hopefully to be answered in one sentence, just to really summarize the learnings we've had. I appreciate this is quite tough, as it would be very tough for myself, but it allows us to bring some of the short answers that can really make a big difference.
You like being on the asking side for that one, I bet.
Yeah, definitely. What I've learned is that I've took this from other people who've interviewed me from other podcasts, and I'd be sitting on the opposite end, and I was like, oh God, here we go. I thought, right. Now it's payback time to get back on the opposite side of the mic. But there we go. Question number 1, Kirsty, a nice simple one. What are you grateful for?
I am grateful for being introduced to sports leadership and all the amazing opportunities that I've been offered and continue to get now.
And question number 2, if you could go back and give your younger self a message that you know now, what would that one message be?
You can achieve anything you want to achieve, and things that you don't even know are possible yet. So just keep going.
Awesome. Love that. Just keep going. And question number 3, what's the greatest piece of advice you've ever received?
Definitely to appreciate the small things. I'm very much like big picture thinking and want massive things all the time, but definitely to stop and appreciate the little things and achievements on the way.
And come back to the mental health side for question before, and what is one thing that you do currently to look after your mental health and your well-being?
Definitely through lockdown, I've found doing some sort of physical activity has been really important. So trying to make sure I do something active every day, and trying to have a bit of a routine in my day too.
Awesome. And finally, question number 5, my favourite question to ask, and that is, Kirsty, what does believing in yourself mean to you?
I think for me, believing in yourself means having the confidence to go after what you want to achieve and believe in your abilities to do that, and just following your heart no matter what.
Thank you for listening to another incredible episode of the Believe in Yourself podcast. Please do make sure you leave a like, you subscribe down below, and check out our most recent episode right by here. Also, don't forget to leave a comment down below of what was your biggest takeaway from this incredible podcast.